He sent them out and instructed them to take nothing with them on the journey except a walking stick, the sandals on their feet, and the shirt on their back. Some friends of mine who are grandparents decided this past spring that they wanted to take 3 of their grandchildren and their parents on a 7-day vacation to the Black Hills. Notice the order in which I put the priority of who they wanted to take to the Black Hills. They wanted to take their 3 grandchildren and their parents with them to the Black Hills for a 7-day vacation. They chose the Black Hills because, of course, it involved not having to get on a plane, not having to deal with airports. It was just simply an 8-hour drive in a minivan all together. And those same friends of mine invited me to go along. Thanks be to God, my schedule was already busy. I had a wedding, I had a couple of other things already in the calendar, and so I had to graciously decline. Imagine me in a minivan, 8 of us, by the way, 3 of them under the age of 12, for 8 hours across South Dakota. Thank God for celibacy. But these friends of mine, grandparents, shared with me the story, of course, of these 3 grandchildren. Like, they are psyched, they are stoked, they are so excited about the possibility of going with Grandma and Grandpa out to the Black Hills, even if it means 8 hours in a minivan. So they're excited, and their parents are trying to teach them responsibility. And so the parents say to their 3 children now, you need to pack your bag for the trip. But remember, you need to pack light because there's going to be 7 of us in the van, and there's not a lot of room for luggage. So the 3 children undertook the task of packing their own bags. The eldest, her name is Annie. Actually, her name really isn't Annie. I make up names to protect the guilty. But Annie, the oldest, is 12 years old. And she went about the task of deciding what would be in the bag by making a list, and she would prioritize it, and she would cross it out, and she would reprioritize her list, and she would do this daily, and she did it daily for nearly 2 weeks. And the entire time she would do it, she would have this very loud sigh as she was trying to put this list of what would go into the bag together. And then there was the second one, Katie. She's 7. And her approach to packing lightly was she just jammed as much as she could into her backpack, and then she would start crying because she realized that she didn't have any clothes yet in the backpack. And her parents told me she did that for an entire week, every single day. And then there was their son, Peter, soon to be 5 years old. And his mother and dad asked him, Peter, do you have your bag packed? He said, I don't need a bag. I don't need a bag, Mom and Dad. And so he went to his bedroom and he came back out, and in one hand he showed them his Batman action figure, and in the other hand he had a pair of Spider-Man underwear. This is all I need, Mom and Dad. And of course they tried not to laugh like some of you just did. And they looked at Peter and they said, are you sure that's all you're going to need for 7 days out in the Black Hills? And he said, well, you know, Mom and Dad, you've always said God's the boss, so I packed him first. And then Mom and Dad said, well, so where did you put God then? And with his hand holding the Batman action figure, he pointed right to his chest. I packed God first. Now, truth be told, I'm guessing his grandparents and his mother and dad and his 2 older sisters were hoping that he would take more than the Batman action figure and a pair of Spider-Man underwear on a 7-day vacation. And I'm sure he did. But something tells me Peter's journey out to the Black Hills and back probably yielded more fruit. Because isn't it true that life and the journey that you and I take through life is not so much about what we have on the journey, but who we have along the journey. It's not so much about what we have. You know, the food, the bag, the extra shirt, the extra pair of socks. It's not about what we have on the journey of life that matters as much as who we have. It's the reason why Jesus said to the disciples as he sends them out 2 by 2 in today's gospel, take nothing with you on the journey except a walking stick, the sandals on your feet, and the shirt on your back. Because Jesus wanted the disciples, as he wants you and I to realize, that we need to trust. We need to trust in the one who is always with us on this journey. The one who loves us so much that he chose to send you and I his son. And this son of his has chosen to get into the minivans called our life. As crowded and as packed and as jammed and as prioritized and pre-prioritized as it has become. And it is God that chooses to find a place in the midst of all that stuff called your life and mine. But the only way we will recognize that God is even in the minivan called our life is that we, of course, have to realize that we need to declutter. We need to reprioritize. We need to stop jamming stuff in there, and we need to recognize that sometimes we just need an action figure and a pair of underwear. And then we go on our way. But notice, Jesus sends them out 2 by 2. It's best not to go alone. The world is too frightening and it's too scary, and most importantly, we need one another to be able to help us along the way. It means that we have to be willing likewise to go out. You see, it's not enough to be a disciple of Christ in the comforts of our own home or even in our own neighborhood or even in our own community. It's not enough to simply say, I'm comfortable here. I don't want to meddle in other people's business. I don't want to be necessarily a part of other people's lives. I just want to tend to myself and the people that are closest to me. As important as that is, my friends, Jesus demands that you and I are willing to get into the minivans of other people's lives, and we need to travel with them. And as we travel with one another, we need to share the good news. We need, like the disciples, to be able to tell one another what we have come to know about Jesus Christ. We need to share with other people the power of his life and his love and his forgiveness and his presence in our life. We need to be willing to recognize each and every day that as we are set out on the journey, like Peter, we need to pack God first. And where do we put him? Well, where he already is, right here in the depths of our heart. So as we come to the Lord today, to be fed, to worship him, to be nourished by him, to be forgiven from him, why we come recognizing that this journey of ours is an incredible one. And it involves discipleship. And discipleship requires that we pack lightly, because it doesn't matter what we have on the journey. What matters is who we have. And who do we have? Well, we have God. We have the gift of his Son. We have the power of his life and his love. And so, are you ready? Let us get into the minivans of our life and one another's. And as a community of believers, let us travel. Let us share the good news. Let us cure the sick. Let us preach the gospel always. And when necessary, let us use words. Let us, my friends, be willing is to take with us on the journey all that we need. And I could just imagine that debriefing that took place after the disciples returned to our Lord in today's gospel. I can imagine Jesus asking those 12 disciples, just like he asks you and I every day, were you lacking anything? And I bet the disciples said, and I hope you and I can say, nothing. We are lacking nothing. To which Jesus smiles and says, ah.